shouldn't be here.
They can't shut me out. Not now.
No, Paul, don't do something that you're going to regret.
I'm not going to regret this.
Your Honor, Jennifer Donovan's dying request was that Dusty Donovan, her husband, adopt and raise her son as his own. She also made it clear at the same time that she did not want Mr. Montgomery involved in Johnny's life.
And why was that?
She felt his influence on the boy might prove to be destructive. Thus, my client is and should remain Johnny's legal parent and sole custodian. The only change we wish to make is to revoke Mr. Montgomery's visitation rights. Given his history, we think he might prove to be a flight risk with the boy.
Your Honor, I am not a flight risk.
Mr. Hughes, to deny the biological parent visitation rights is extreme in any circumstance. What is it that you propose that your client has to offer the child that Mr. Montgomery does not?
My client can provide a stable home environment.
How? Mr. Donovan is a single man with no family in the area.
Not so, Your Honor. A few days ago, Mr. Donovan married Meg Snyder, who comes from a family with significant ties to this community.
You're his wife?
No, she's not. Come on, get out of here. You're trying to pull the wool over.
Excuse me? Who are you?
I'm Paul Ryan. I'm Meg's husband, and I'm Johnny's uncle.
And you're saying you are still married to Mrs. Donovan?
That's right, I am.
So this marriage is...
Their marriage is a joke.
Your Honor, with due respect, this guy should be removed from the courtroom immediately. He has a history of mental illness, even violence. That's why his marriage ended.
Meg is not your wife.
Paul, you need to stop. You're embarrassing yourself.
I have proof, right here, that their marriage is not valid.
Your Honor, I must object. My client's marriage is not the subject of these proceedings.
Well, if a stable two-parent household is what your client claims to have over Mr. Montgomery, the biological father, I think the validity of the marriage is very much an issue. Let me see the file.
This, here, is a copy of our divorce papers, signed very sadly on January 19th here in Oakdale. And this here is a marriage certificate from the state of Nevada, dated January 26th.
Yes, I can see that. What I cannot see is anything here that would nullify the marriage.
This here is a copy of the divorce agreement that Meg filed in the state of Nevada, and you can look at the date.
December 15th, 2008.
Meg also filed this as a resident of the state of Nevada, also not true, but most importantly, on December 15th, Meg was still here in Oakdale with me, pregnant with my little girl. We were still married. These papers were backdated in order to get around the waiting period. It's the only way that the divorce could be finalized.
How do we even know that these documents are authentic?
They're state documents. I hired a private investigator. They're all completely legitimate.
How could you do this?
How could you marry him?
Your Honor, you see what he's doing, don't you? He's using his nephew's custody hearing to strike back at me. He lost his wife to me. He can't handle it.
I didn't. That's the whole point, isn't it? These divorce papers, they were filed under false pretense, which means that the divorce is not legal. Meg is not your wife. She's mine.
Your Honor, my wife and I thought everything was in order before we got married. If our marriage proves to be invalid, we'll just get married again as soon as we can.
And Ms. Snyder, is this what you'd want, to end your marriage to Mr. Ryan and immediately get married again?
Yes, Your Honor.
No.
I can't remain married to Paul Ryan. It was troubled from the very start. But with Dusty, Your Honor, I have known him most of my life. He was my first love. And in the few days I've been his wife, I have never been so content or taken care of. And Johnny, you should see him. He is so happy with us at my mother's farm with my little girl.
Our little girl.
Johnny loves being a big brother.
Why are you doing this? Why are you saying all these things? You don't love Dusty. I know you don't.
Your Honor.
That's it. Mr. Ryan, I want you out.
Johnny, away from Craig.
Mr. Ryan, you are totally out of line.
You don't believe me? Fine. Ask her. She'll tell you.
Your Honor, it seems to me that anything Miss Anderson would have to offer would be hearsay.
She had a direct conversation with Dusty. Is that still hearsay?
Your Honor, I would like to ask Miss Anderson some questions, if I may.
It's not relevant.
Mr. Donovan, Mr. Montgomery is representing himself in this case. He has the court's permission to ask questions of any witnesses who are called. Miss Anderson, would you please take a seat? Please. Mr. Montgomery, when you are ready, you may ask your first question.
What is your relationship with Mr. Donovan?
We're friends.
Friends? Is that friends with benefits, or
He's
just...
a married man.
Well, that remains to be seen, apparently. But regardless of Mr. Donovan's marital status, would you say that your feelings for Mr. Donovan have moved beyond friendship?
Would you answer the question, please, Miss Anderson?
If there are feelings beyond friendship, they are mine. Not.
Thank you. Has Mr. Donovan ever given you any indication that your relationship with him could become something more than friends?
He's been a little unclear about that.
Fair enough. Did he tell you that he was planning to get married?
He told me that he proposed.
Were you surprised?
I think you know the answer to that.
Well, given that Mr. Donovan was hinting that your relationship with him could be something more than friendship, did he ever explain to you why he was getting married to someone else? I mean, was it what Meg said it was, that it was a love that harkened back to their teenage years? Or was it something else?
Your Honor, he's leading Miss Anderson to answer the question in his favor.
Miss Anderson, do you think you can respond to that question in an impartial manner?
I can try. Dusty told me that he was marrying Meg to prove to the court that he could provide Johnny with the kind of family that Mr. Montgomery could not.
He didn't actually marry Meg for love. Instead, it was a brazen attempt to make himself look better in the eyes of the court.
What was your marriage to Carly all about?
Well, we actually didn't seal that deal, so there's not much comparison to make, unless you want to point out that you're no more married to Meg than I am to Carly.
Doesn't matter. We're talking about my son. I'm his father, Your Honor, because that's what his mother wanted. I can provide a life that he can't.
I can provide for him just as well as you can.
You can provide a messed up situation for him where you screw him up like you did with your other children. That's why your daughter, Lucy, took off with him, right? So you wouldn't destroy his life like you did with hers and Bryant's?
Mr. Donovan, sit down.
Sit.
Miss Anderson, how did you find out that Dusty had supposedly married Meg?
I ran into Meg. She told me.
Did she explain why they had gotten married so precipitously?
Yes.
And were her reasons for getting married any different than the reasons Mr. Donovan gave you?